The answers to the questions.
We need a break.
Okay.
The left is interrupting the press conference. We need to end it.
Yeah.
So lawmakers on Capitol Hill gathered together as a press conference. They wanted to call attention to the plight of the political prisoners, those arrested on January 6th thereafter, who are still in custody without charges being filed. It is ridiculous. It's ongoing. But you see, that doesn't look very democratic. Agitators essentially broke up the press conference, but still important information was passed beforehand. I believe we have, let's listen please to Congressman Matt Gaetz.
Antifa and BLM set fires to this country for months, and we did not see an interest from federal law enforcement in those claims. But now there are Americans all over this country who are being harassed, who are being targeted by law enforcement, and if there's a basis for that, then we need to make sure that we get it, and that's why we're here answering these questions.
Well, Congressman Gaetz got the word out, but it was challenging. You heard the whistles. What a pain in the neck, but I'm glad they did what they did. And Congressman Louie Gohmert made his point as well. They both join us now. Welcome, gentlemen. And Congressman Gohmert, first to you. What is the justification for having people in custody this long with no charges filed, so many of them?
There is no justification, and that's why we've been asking for information just about how this was all proceeding. We're not trying to obstruct anything. We just have a responsibility for oversight. And in general, we needed to know, how are you going about this? What is the process? We were getting reports that people were being held without benefit of knowing what the charges were, what the evidence against them was. The law requires them to know exculpatory, exonerating evidence. They weren't getting any of that, but they were getting pressure to enter a guilty plea, and they needed the information. So there were a lot of questions we have. We've been asking through letters. We've gotten no responses whatsoever. And so this was another effort to try to get some answers to our questions.
And Congressman Gaetz, that day, January 6th, now has been exploited and exaggerated, I think demonized and stigmatized. So these folks who are in custody are getting, they have no supporters out there other than friends and family, and no one's really talking about them. So I give you a lot of credit for raising this, because it seems fundamentally un-American.
The Democrats aren't done with January 6th. As you saw, they're going to continue to engage in histrionics. But while Nancy Pelosi and her lapdogs, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, were focused on the past, Judge Gohmert and I were concerned about violations of due process that are happening right now. There's no reason why the Department of Justice should be withholding exculpatory evidence from people who are in custody. There's no reason for deprivations in treatment, deviations from prosecutorial standards and from the standards that we would normally use for this type of a deprivation of liberty. And so if Merrick Garland is not going to answer these questions, they're not going away. Our call will just grow louder. Our congressional colleagues will become even more animated to get the truth, because it is not okay for Republicans to just sit back and allow the left to recast history. We have to go on offense, and that's what Judge Gohmert and I were doing today.
And Congressman, Judge, I mean, look, let's face it, some of these folks probably did things against the law, and they'll have to be punished. Right. But plenty of people did lots of horrible things for a year. We saw the protests, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and that was glorified, encouraged, and I mean, even the worst offenders, no cash bail, right out, right away, or some people paid the bail for them. The double standard is incredible.
It is incredible. And actually, when we were trying to convey our concern for due process, one guy, the line fraud that was blowing the whistle, said, "Oh, I'm a lawyer. You should have cared about, the jails before." And I said, we're trying to get the information out. I've always been concerned about the conditions of jails and prisons, and I have my whole adult career been concerned about that. But anyway, it's what you expect of the left. And of course, you've got the dog and pony show going with Pelosi, and she didn't want any Republicans on there that could ask serious questions. And I saw a tweet Jesse Kelly sent out, said, listen to the head of security at the Capitol testify. I'm beginning to understand how Meemaw and the guy that thinks he's a buffalo were able to breach their defenses.
Huh. There's that. Hey, Congressman Gaetz, I saw you question General Milley, and let's face it, he's a general. He's got his 4 stars. There aren't many members of Congress who would challenge him. You did. I thought you did it very effectively, and it is the role of civilians in government to question these guys. And quite frankly, there's something odd happening here, like a police state in formation. If you're wearing a uniform, you are somehow beyond questioning. And I give you so much credit, you and the judge, for pursuing these questions, even when they're trying to put you in a politically awkward box.
Well, these matters are actually linked to Greg, and here's why. You see, if you release the January 6th detainees who didn't do anything violent, who may have committed misdemeanors, then you concede that there is no real national security threat that erupts from January 6th that is longstanding. And if they concede that, then the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, the FBI won't be able to turn national security authorities inward against our people. And that's really the objective of the Biden government. And what they don't get is they're really harming America in the world, where we want to be able to say to despots everywhere, hey, you actually have to live with the results of elections. You can't just flood the mailboxes with a bunch of unaccounted for ballots and then claim that's a legitimate victory. And you also cannot lock up people just because you don't agree with their politics. There has to be due process, charges, an opportunity to be heard. So the damage that these woke-topians are doing is not just domestic, it is actually hurting America on a global stage.
We have a list that we continue to update of people who are still in federal custody. And I'd like to continue with that list and then get a final word from you, Congressman Gohmert. Douglas Jensen, 41 years old, from Des Moines, Iowa. He claims he was misled into joining the event by QAnon. He's still in jail. Julian Cater, a 32-year-old from New Brunswick, New Jersey. He is still in jail. Edward Lang, a 26-year-old from Newburgh, New York, accused of battling police outside of the Capitol with a baseball bat, but he is still in jail. Nicholas Longaron, 26 years old, from Little River, South Carolina, accused of throwing a traffic barrier and possibly using bear spray, but still in jail. And that's the thing that I can't, like the lack of progress here. Or is there any kind of progress? Judge, you're in contact with the administration and justice officials. You got any sense that they're about to give on some of these matters? Because it does seem grossly unfair on the surface.
We're in touch with some, but not through the Justice Department, justice officials. They are being a stone wall. And of course, there are things that really are concerning about some of their arguments. The 18-year-old kid from Georgia that committed no acts of violence, the federal prosecutor actually argued you should not release him to go home on bail because, he was homeschooled, so we know his parents are a big part of his problem, so don't release him to go home. This kind of stuff is outrageous, and somebody needs to be held to account. That's not due process.
Congressman Gohmert, Congressman Gaetz, thank you. Thank you once again. Good to see you on Newsmax.
Thank you, Greg.
To be continued.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.